Hey family, it's Tasha, MAMABEAR Prepping. I hope you guys had a beautiful weekend this weekend, Mother's Day weekend. And I hope you guys enjoyed yourself, enjoying the weather. We're going to talk a little bit about that today. So welcome to the channel. Welcome back to the channel. If you have not subscribed yet, please do. If you have not joined us over at Patreon, please do. Real quick, a little snapshot of Patreon, on Friday, did my video about the border. A lot of folks have emailed me and asked me, what is your opinion about the border? I've talked about it a few times, but people have specifically, as of lately, wanted me to talk about it here on YouTube. And it's just one of those topics that I just feel like is not necessarily good for over here, okay? I do not like to be censored, and so I like the fact of being able to talk the way I want to. So if you want my full opinion, my full view of what's going on, that's over at Patreon. So we did that on Friday, and so and a really good conversation came out of that as well. Okay, so done with that little plug. Let's get into the topic at hand. So lately, obviously, it has been getting starting to heat up, right? Starting to get some warmer days. We've been in the 80s. And so, of course, that's not as hot as it's going to get this summer here. It's going to get way hotter than that. And then wherever you're at, you have your own, temperatures that you're going to deal with. Your absolute highs for the summer, and when you're going to kind of start seeing those days. Well, we've officially started. We've had about a week here where we've had high 70s and 80s. And although that's not the top of it, it's obviously a very big difference than wintertime and fall and snow and rain and all of that stuff. And so it is the time to start thinking about it, because it has been hot. Your house gets hot. I don't know about you, but I don't have AC. And so for us, we have to plan out how do we keep the house cool. And so the one thing I think about is, okay, you have the first goal of, okay, how do you keep your house cool, right? Especially for somebody like us, we don't have ACs. We have a couple window units strategically placed within the house that helps cool down when we're absolutely like in those miserable numbers, right? 90s, 100s, right? So we have that, but the question, comes, well, what are you doing when no power comes? That changes the game completely, okay? You have where you're trying to deal with something, deal with your life, and maybe you're blessed. You have full-on HVAC, AC, right? You can cool your home. You just turn on click on a button. And that's even worse in the sense of if you're not thinking about no power, because you're accustomed to that AC, that dial that you just turn real quick. When it does start to heat up, and if we go through a situation where there's no power, you're really not ready, because you haven't even thought it through and gotten the things you need. And for some of you, obviously, if you're into preparedness, you really think about these things. Maybe you live that lifestyle where you do have that and you have planned what you will do. But I would tell you, for the future moving forward, there's a lot of things that we talk about on this channel that could happen, and no power is kind of an underlying problem with a lot of different things that could happen, right? No matter what you're kind of preparing for, what type of event could come your way. Especially if we talk about all of the natural disaster type events, you should be preparing for no power. It's literally the thing I tell people to prep after water, food, meds, and then I say work on no power, work on a no grid situation. What are the things you need in life to make your quality of life still be okay, even though you don't have power? So you literally are running through the day. What are the things that I do throughout the day from first waking up, and how is that thing affected with power? Is it a thing that I can continue to do without power? Is it something that I need to change up and totally do a different way because there's no power? Is something I can't do at all, and now I have to come up with an alternative? And you plan for that. You get those things. Now, if you talk about no power and weather, that's going to be a problem. You have to prepare for no power and weather and what that does to your family, right? And your preparedness. Cooling. I mean, we talk about it here. It's like we are used to no AC, so we're used to the typical things, opening up doors and windows when it's not the heat of the day. Let that nice cool morning breezes come in, that nice morning shady type, breezy. Sun's starting to pop up, but it's not the hottest, and we're letting that in. We're letting that cool air in to cool the house. And then when it starts, the sun really starts coming out to play, we're shutting things down and we're running fans, for example. But how does that change now? How does that change when you don't have fans? Do we have some power sources that will run a couple fans? Sure. So you have to think, what if you only have those fans that you're running? And what if for some reason, it's really draining that power source too fast, and it just doesn't make sense for the amount of time it takes to recharge it. Okay, so you've got to think about those things. This is something that we always say you should be planning, meaning you should be finding the fan that let's say you have an electric, let's say you have a solar generator, or a regular generator, whatever. But let's just say you have something quieter, you have a solar generator, it's lots of sun, and you find a nice wattage that will work for your solar generator, and you have a fan. You need to be thinking that what are the priorities for that fan? What room is it going to be? Where are you guys congregating? What's the room that you can naturally keep the coldest already, and then you're adding and introducing that fan? Maybe it's a person, maybe you're taking care of an elderly family member or disabled family member, a child, whoever, that needs to be stayed cool, right? So maybe it's strategic medically wise is where that fan is set at. Maybe it's a congregation area where, hey, if you want a little fan, this is where it's going to be. It's going to be in the family room, and that's it, right? So what can you do now to prepare for that? Okay, weather and no power and having to deal with heat is a big issue. A lot of people, blackout curtains, things like that. Yeah, that stuff does work. We have some, again, strategically placed. I say strategically placed. We have blackout curtains on almost every single window. But the ones that, really get that heat of the sun, that side of the house, that side needs to be taken care of. No windows open, no curtains open, totally blocking that sun to keep that side of the house nice and cool, or as cool as possible. Okay. But I think of things naturally that can help you, tree covers, trees that you plant that provide shade, coverings and shade cloths over windows. Just having a shade cloth or something over some windows helps on how much sun is actually coming in and beaming into that window. There's different things that you can put, tent and different stuff that's actually not that expensive, just regular tent that you can buy on Amazon that you can throw up on windows that will help with that. Let's see, shade cloths, different shading type things. I mean, it could be cloths that you can put up, it could be trees that you plant, it could be just different things like that that help you deter that sun beating into the house. And then how are you cooling down? I don't know about you, but on those super, super hot days, I like to take a shower, obviously not just to get clean, right? To get all, the project smell and everything off of me that I did, whatever I did that day. But in the early or late afternoon, I like to take a shower and to cool down because it's so stinking hot. And imagine no power and possibly there is no water. And so how are you cooling down? Do you have a pool? Do you have a kiddie pool? Do you have a pond? It comes down to that renewable resource of having water. Do you have stuff available? And not obviously using your drinking water to cool down yourself, right? Medically knowing what somebody needs, understanding heat stroke, all of those things so that you can treat those things, so that you can keep people hydrated. My kiddo, he's been doing a lot of work outside with me lately in the sun. A lot of manual labor he's been doing, and he loves it, but he gets very, very busy and into the project and into the task and doesn't want to drink water. And so I'm constantly like, listen, stop what you're doing, let's drink some water. Stop what you're doing, let's drink some water, right? And he's barely wanting to do it. And that's a sign. You have to drink water. You have to stay hydrated. And you can't, I feel like I am full, I don't need more water. No, you need water because you're expelling water through your sweat and all that stuff, okay? So just super important to stay cool. Again, a little hack, a little trick that, a lot of you probably already know is, you do those chores early in the morning. You do the outside stuff like that you need to do, get done with animals, projects, things like that, first thing in the morning, right? Or you do them late in the evening, right? That early evening when the temperatures are starting to go back down, you're doing stuff then as well. And then that middle part of the day, that hottest part of the day, that's not when you're outside, tilling a field. And that's not when you're out building the chicken coop, right? You're not doing it in the heat of the day. You're doing it in those other. So you're a little restricted, but you have to think about no power. And then if you do overexert yourself, you do get too hot, how do you cool yourself down immediately to a safe measure? Do you have emergency oral hydration type stuff, right? Packets, different things you can buy, emergency water, emergency hydration, different things you can buy. It's just very, very important that you think about this. Let's switch it up. Let's talk about winter. Another, I'm not going to say fear, but another really big concern of mine is, you know, no power again, and we go into the opposite, into wintertime, when there's very, very cold temperatures. There's, you know, snow, there's blizzards. I mean, some of this country got minus 30s, minus 40s last year. I mean, that's just crazy to me. These houses look like icicle houses. It was wild how it looked, like Buffalo, New York, wild, right? And so I think, okay, we've got snow. Hear the train. We've got snow, we've got ice. We had days where it was like 6 degrees, but we didn't have any kind of negative days, and that was cold enough. I mean, that was seriously cold. You have to deal with all types of different things. You're growing stuff that's outside. So it's a big, big deal. But most important thing is, how are you keeping your family warm? It's the same thing. How do you button up that house now? How do you shut everything down? Is the installation good? You know, do you have your curtains that are helping with holding heat? How are you heating in the first place if you do not have power? There's a lot of ways to stay warm, but you have to do it in a safe manner, right? There's propane, there's kerosene, there's all types of heaters, but again, you need some sort of ventilation. So you have to be careful, because it's like you have this heater, but you have to have some sort of ventilation, and then you're letting in colder air. So just think that through. Think about the different options that are out there. Again, it's about consolidating where in the house you guys are going to be at. There's a lot of funky and other things that you can do to stay warm, especially depending on how cold it is. A fun thing for kids is doing a pop-up tent in their room. Just, hey, it's cold, it's no power, we're gonna pop up this tent, and you guys are gonna start sleeping in this pop-up tent in your room, right? Or consolidating where you're all sleeping in one room, so that you can keep that room warm with your guys' body heat, your breathing, your possible heater, whatever the case may be, okay? But this stuff has to be thought through. I've done a few videos specifically on how to keep your house warm in no power, specifically how to keep your house cool, no power. I'll try to find those videos and link them in the description box below. Hopefully I can find them. I mean, it's been a very, very long time since I've done those videos. And if I can't find them, maybe I'll do them again, just so that we can refresh about it. But I think it's important that no matter where you're at in your preparedness journey, however long you've been doing this, that you're taking a look at this and you're truly seeing on each side of it, heating and cooling, where you stand, what happens when that collides with no power, what happens when that collides with a cyber attack and a grid is taken down. Maybe it's not the entire grid, it's just one piece of the grid. How does that affect you? And how does that affect your ability to stay warm or stay cold, you know, in the heat of the summer, you know, in the coldest part of the winter, as bad as it gets? I mean, you know what your you know, lowest temperatures are that you're going to hit, you know, approximately, and you know your highest numbers. And don't sleep on this, because we already know climate change, right? Things are changing, weather is changing, people are dealing with different aspects of weather that they never dealt with before. And so think about that. Think about how you would deal with things with no power in regards to you keeping your house cool or keeping your house warm. It's a big, big deal, right? Something as simple as having a wood stove or a fireplace in your home is a big deal, right? I mean, it's on our, we're still looking for a home. It's a must have on our, it's not a, okay, yeah, we could get a permit and put in our own wood stove or put in our own fireplace. No, baby, we ain't buying no house that doesn't have these things. You have, it's on the must have. You have to have certain things so that you can help yourself. That's that, you know, having a wood stove, a fireplace that gives you lighting, that gives you heat, that gives you a place to cook. I mean, there's a lot of valuable things that you can accomplish with having just a fireplace or a wood stove. Okay, so it's an absolute must. And that's just a small piece, right? That's just a small snippet, but you've got to think this stuff through. So I hope this got your guys' mind going, got you thinking about some stuff maybe you were putting off that you still needed to wrap up, you still needed to get. You know, we're not in the heat of it right now, but baby, we're well on our way to a very, very hot summer. And so you need to prepare accordingly. And this goes not just for you, but don't forget your critters, your pets, Again, we've been doing a lot of projects as a family outside, a ton of stuff in the sun this week. And, you know, the dog's out there running around with us, and you got to think about them too. You got to have that water out there for them. You know, you got to pay attention to them when they're like, okay, they're done running around and they're in the shade, and how long is their hair, for example, and are they getting enough water? And so you got to think about this. Same with your animals, your livestock, right? Making sure that they have stuff, salt licks, their water, their food, just everything. What's their shade capability? Is there a way for you to introduce water to them and keep them cool? You know, yesterday we're still trying to work on these patchy parts of the grass, and where our above ground septic, you know, brand new septic system is, it's all sand, and it's been very, very difficult to get the grass to grow. And because there's only so much stuff that you can actually put on top of it, right? And so anyway, long story short, we've been doing a lot of watering, and I was watering, and some of the water was pouring into, yesterday was going into the chicken coop, just a little bit, right? Little rainfall on them. And they were loving it. One, it was getting the ground, you know, loosened up. And then two, they were, you know, they were letting them, it rain down on them. So it was nice. It was a nice way to you know, cool them down. But, you know, your animals, your livestock, do they have somewhere to retreat to that is not in the sun, is in the shade, right? Trees, whatever it is, right? So think it through. Think about everybody in your family and how that affects them, and really think about power. You know, if you're taking care of an elderly, let's say, or a disabled child, or whatever, a disabled family member, and they're really confined to a space where they're not up and out a lot, you know, you need to think about how you would get them up and out to the nice cool air, maybe outside if it's a hot day. What are you doing to cool their room? How do you keep it cool during the day, but also how do you keep it cool at night, right? How does this affect them? They're totally different when it comes to being able and having the ability to get through things and fight through things, right? Maybe they don't have the ability to speak that much. So you really just have to pay attention to signs. And during these extreme weather patterns, you got to take the extra step to really pay attention. Okay. So I hope you guys are well. I hope you had a great weekend. I hope you have a good, you know, beginning of the week, that your Monday goes fast. You know, Mondays are kind of but I hope you have a good one and it goes fast. And before you know it, it'll be Tuesday. So I'll see you guys next time on the next video. Take care. Bye.